Okay, so I'd like to welcome you all to this briefing. This happens to be probably my favorite slide of this whole series. This is me. I'm Imrahil of Dol Amroth. I'm a captain of the West, also Prince of Dol Amroth, and have done that for a number of years. And this shows us in action and shows perhaps how battle ready we really were for this situation. Now, I have entitled this Retrospective Analysis of the Siege of Minas Tirith, also known as the Battle of Pelennor Fields. And hopefully I'll be doing a little bit of a debriefing on what happened here a few weeks ago at the battle. Next slide. Your points of contact in case you need to get a hold of us. I am Imrahil of Dol Amroth. I'm a captain of the West, as I mentioned. Now, sitting to my left is Gandalf the White. He also is another captain of the West, known for being a meddling wizard, a conjurer of cheap trick, and a fellow of the Middle-earth Pyrotechnics Guild. Am I missing anything there? No? Okay. And over to my right is Aragorn, another captain of the West, the son of Arathorn, who's the son of Eredor, who's the son of Argynwy, etc., etc. How far back does that go? How many generations? Okay. Also a chieftain of the Dunedain, and the last High King of Gondor. You were a ranger of the North, and oh yeah, we've also got to remember voted sexiest man in Middle-earth on 3015, 3017, and 3018. Hope that goes good for you this year, so you may have some competition from me. Okay, next slide, please. This shows Hagar the Horrible. I think this kind of applies to the situation. And you can see Hagar and his forces are coming up to a castle, and the guy at the castle says, no, this is number 35. That castle is down the road. Kind of like what happened to us, except there was no other castles. So, next slide. Okay, a little bit on our position at the beginning of the battle and what we had going for us. Now, our assets included garrison units that were well trained for defensive warfare. My men have been working a lot of hard, long hours getting ready for such a situation, and I think they were well trained and battle ready by the time that the orcs and the trolls rolled up. Also, we do have a positional advantage of our fortress. This includes a defensive perimeter of a tall outer wall, followed by a number of inner walls. And of course, there's a rise in elevation at each level of our city. So in other words, the enemy would have to make a long trip to get all the way into the defensive perimeter. This positional advantage also can be demonstrated with overlapping fields of fire within the fortress itself, which makes the offensive penetration costly to the enemy. There was no way these guys were going to make it up to the palace at the top level. Also, again, we have a capable civilian leadership under Gandalf the White, or GGW, and military leadership under Imrahil of Dol Amroth. Yeah, yours truly. Now, the neutrals in this situation were our moderate artillery capabilities. We mostly have light defensive ordnance consisting of catapults, which are capable of flinging rocks down on them. If we run out of bricks and rocks, we're pretty much screwed. We also had a number of small arms that we could use against them, mostly crossbows and bows, and we could shoot arrows down on the guys that were below the walls. I call the potential reinforcements from Rohan and southern Gondor neutrals. I mean, we sure needed them, and they sure helped us out, but we were really sweating bullets there for a while, guys, so thank you, Aragorn, for showing up. Liabilities in this situation were our comprised leadership of Denethor, and I'll get to that in a moment. Also, Faramir was seriously wounded in action previous to the battle, and I must say he was probably one of the finest military leaders in Gondor at the time. Well, next to his brother, but less said about that the better. Also, we had a numeric inferiority. We were basically operating with approximately one regiment of 4,000 troops before the reinforcements came in. Okay, next slide, please. Now, the United Forces of Mordor, or the UFM, comparing their assets, neutrals, and liabilities. Can you kind of shut your phone off there? Hey, yeah, thank you. Okay, the assets for the United Forces of Mordor were numeric superiority. They had approximately 3 divisions of 30,000 troops, about a third of those being orcs and trolls from Mordor, another 10,000 coming from the east, and another 10,000 coming from the south. And with those, they brought a lot of elephants, but we'll talk about those later. Now, they also had freedom of movement outside of Gondor's defensive perimeter. They did have a battle-ready artillery force of heavy ordnance, and these heavy ordnance were siege towers. They were some heavy catapults, which were capable of shooting fireballs, and unfortunately the heads of some of our guys, and then they were able to batter the walls. We'll talk about that a little bit, that their engineering units showed themselves to be pretty handy in this battle. Also, they were aided by Nazgul air superiority for scouting and strafing sorties against us. Neutrals included an extensive use of overcast weather conditions by Sauron, which exacerbated the fog of war. This made it hard for us to target enemy positions, and it did give the orcs a slight intrinsic advantage because they had night observation devices, or NODSs. Now, liabilities for the UFM included poor coordination and communication from the top-down command, which was Angmar, the Witch King. The guy doesn't have a way of communicating very well with his soldiers. In fact, he very rarely says much of anything at all. These troops also have a general offensive bias and a hard time understanding defensive positions. They're used to pretty much just steamrolling anything that gets in their way. Previous to the battle, limitations of intelligence gathering as to the status of allied reinforcements, which let us bring Theoden and Aragorn into the battle and surprise the UFM troops, and also poor cooperation between units. To a Uruk-hai, the sensing session between the Snagas simply consisted of eating the Snagas. There was also poor morale of individual combatants. There's basically a where there's a whip, there's a way kind of leadership, and this results in low member self-esteem and failures in building team units. Okay, next slide. Now, this is a good chart that shows the comparison of the Allied and MTDF forces. I'm sorry, that's a little hard to read. So, and next slide. About 9 months previous to this was the Battle of Osgiliath, and after extensive urban warfare, the MTDF forces were forced to pull back across the River Anduin. And the officer in charge of this operation, Faramir of Ithilien, oversaw a successful ordered retreat of his forces. However, on the 13th of March at 0230, the UFM launched an amphibious assault across the Anduin, and they were aided by close air support from the Nazgul. They were quickly able to overrun the MTDF positions. The MTDF was pulled back to the defensive perimeter of Ramus Ekor after Faramir was severely wounded in action. Now, you got to remember that the fortifications of Ramus Ekor are a legacy forward defensive position that provides too broad of a battlefront for the available resources. And this position was quickly overrun, and without an OIC leadership, the MTDF were quickly compromised by the UFM Vanguard forces, and they were forced to withdraw into the more heavily fortified perimeter of Minas Tirith proper. I wrote Gondor, but I meant Minas Tirith, and that should be MT. So, okay, next slide. So our mission command and coordination, and I've got pictures of everybody here, but in probably their finer days. Command and coordination leadership from Minas Tirith was heavily compromised at the beginning of the battle. Our primary military leader, Faramir, was wounded in action at Osgiliath, and I'm happy to report that he is doing better, but he was looking kind of puny there for a while. Also, our primary civilian leadership under Denethor, the Steward of Gondor. Denethor was suffering from a crisis of morale due to major depressive disorder. This was precipitated by offensive counterintelligence by Sauron himself. Now, the nature of this counterintelligence remains classified, and I really can't share it with you at this time, but it will come out. So we had to go with an expedient leadership team, and we readjusted to yours truly. I'm the guy with the great hair there. I took on the military functions and command of the MTDF, and Gandalf the White. I'm sorry, I gave you a lowercase w. Sorry, Gandalf. Anyway, Gandalf took on the civil functions, the intelligence, and the morale functions of our operation. Next slide. Now, our aim was to secure the defensive perimeter, in other words, watch the walls, to protect our civilians from harm, and we did this by moving them further up and further in the city, and also to secure city resources and sequester them from enemy seizure. Now, we had quite a bit of oil that we were going to pour down on the siege towers and the besieging units of Sauron, and we didn't want those to be hit with a fireball and blow up a city block. So we basically used the elevations and walls of Minas Tirith to provide cover for an orderly retreat further into our defensive zone. And our other aim was to engage the enemy long enough to provide time for relief forces to arrive at the combat zone. And here's a picture of my team after we got done. I think we looked pretty good there. I think we're looking pretty tough. Hair got a little messed up, but next slide. Eventually, our defensive perimeter was infiltrated, and Gandalf was responsible for the concentration of force at the main gate of MT when this occurred. So basically what happened is the UFM forces utilized a kinetic breaching technology nicknamed GROM by the Troll Engineering Forces to create an aperture in the main gate, and this created a point of access to the city at 0534 on March the 15th. Their plan was to follow through with Special Forces, aka the UHI. These were directly under the command of the UFM Combined Forces Commander Angmar the Witch King. You kind of remember him as one of the Ring Wraiths. Actually, he was the head Ring Wraith. So the enemy's intent was to inject UHI commandos into the city and assault the following objectives. First, our towers. Second, our buildings. And third, our people. Okay, next slide. After this occurred, the primary relief and reinforcements began to trickle in. Okay, so we had 6,000 cavalry troops arriving at 0554 on March 15th, and this was shortly after the city gate had been breached. And the advantages of these Riders of Rohan, or the ROR or Rohirrim, was that they had a high degree of aptitude in mounted combat. Also, their mobility, particularly towards the flank and rear of the UFM. And finally, they had a capable and experienced leader under the OIC, Theoden, God rest his soul. The ROR command divided into assault force to directly engage the UFM flank and rear and confront the Haradrim cavalry. The second goal of the ROR was to assign a fixing force who would insert themselves between the gate of Minas Tirith and the front of the UFM units. In doing this, they prevented further penetration into the main perimeter of MT, and they forced the Witch King to redeploy his forces. Next slide. Okay, thanks. At this point, the Witch King had a failure of situational awareness, basically misunderstood the dynamics of the situation, and this made the crucial mistake of subordinating his command to Gothmog and adjusting his personal combat function to an aviator role that oversaw air-to-ground attacks. Now, he wasn't capable of scoring a killed in action on Theoden. However, ATWK was grounded by the civilian partisan resistance, and this was in the guise of Theoden's niece Eowyn, who aided in disabling ATWK's flight system with the aid of a fellow civilian partisan, Meriadoc Brandybuck. Is Mary here today? Oh, there he is. Okay, yeah, thanks, buddy. Now, while both of these two figures were severely wounded in action, they were able to exploit the critical weaknesses of ATWK's defense system, and they neutralized Angmar, and this further disrupted the UFM command. I think it's worth noting that ATWK's demise was a result of a failure in intelligence gathering and a proper background check of Eowyn. Unfortunately, this was probably due to a don't ask, don't tell culture in the UFM. Now, I do give a little bit of credit to ATWK. He did pick a fairly capable figure in this transition of command, and this would be Gothmog. Gothmog did have his advantages. He was an NCO, which are, of course, the backbone of Mordor. He had an extensive battle experience and a fairly intuitive command. He also showed flexibility, except for his walking, and he had a common touch with your average orc. In fact, he commonly touched them and knocked them on their butts. Disadvantages to Gothmog were his potato-shaped head. Now, to his credit, he was able to repel the ROR and prevent the fixing force from getting to the city gate. And he followed the ROR shock attack with a powerful massed counterattack and reclaimed initiative in the battle. And if it wouldn't have been for what happened next, I think you guys from Rohan would have been toast. Next slide. And that next thing was the secondary relief and reinforcement. And I see Aragorn smiling and nodding his head here. Reinforcements under Aragorn, son of Arathorn, arrived at the combat zone, and they used deceptively marked vessels and clandestine movement to insert their units into the battle. Now, most of these vessels were riverine resources that brought to bear another 3,000 militia units from southern Gondor. These forces were augmented by an unknown number of long-term reservist units who were activated from the Dunharrow VA. So they brought these guys back. They're not here today, are they? No, I don't see any of them. Okay. Now, this led to another dynamic switch on the battlefield, and the addition of Aragorn's leadership had a positive effect on the morale of both Gondor and Rohan. So this led to the final phase of the battle, and first this was an envelopment by Aragorn's forces on the south, the ROR on the north, and a sally mission from yours truly from Minas Tirith. This in turn led to a collapse of the command and communications after the death of General Potato Head. And friendly fire on the MDF units caused the Oliphant units to rampage, and most of those were quickly dispatched. Now, there was a lack of initiative on the part of the sub-commanders overseeing the affiliated mercenary troops in the MDF, and this also led to a rapid disintegration of the battle integrity. Basically, the guys from the east and the south ran home to mama. Now, mopping up operations against the enemy combatants had a better than average success rate. In fact, it was close to 100% casualty rate for the MDF units. And I'm also proud to say that we had a successful medevac of casualties to our level 2 trauma center, aka the House of Healing. Now, our combined allied forces showed about 3,000 killed in action, and these unfortunately included King Theoden of Rohan and Halbarad. Now, a lot of you don't know who he was. I can assure you that he was quite the hero, and he performed admirably and will be given recognition posthumously. Also, the United Forces of Mordor showed about 30,000 killed in action. In fact, this is their entire force. And these included Witch King of Angmar and Gothmog, aka Mr. Potato Head. So it was a tactical defeat for Sauron. However, he is still fielding a sizable army within his home territory, and we are looking at ways of neutralizing that in the future. Okay, next slide. Okay, questions. Now, I don't have a whole lot of time here to answer a lot of questions, so I'll just take one or two. Yeah, you in the back, what?
Did the elephants play any part in the battle?
Okay, yeah, the question was, did the elephants play a major part in the battle? Yeah, your answer is no. That's what I've got. I thank you for listening, and you can get back to your duties. Okay, this week we're covering Gondor, the Siege of Minas Tirith. Came out in 1977 and was designed by Richard Berg and Linda Mosca, and was published by SPI Games. This has been a fairly challenging video to make. I've really struggled with the rules for this. They're not particularly complex, but they leave quite a few holes that you kind of have to fill. And this seems to be pretty true of a lot of Richard Berg's games. He kind of leaves a lot up to the players to figure out to make the thing work. Now, it does assume a little bit of a working knowledge of the Lord of the Rings series to play. It covers 16 turns, and also turns 2 to 6 are night turns. The forces attacking Minas Tirith are called the Sauron forces, and those defending the city or coming to its aid are collectively called the Westerness forces. Initially, Sauron comes on the east side of the map, with reinforcements coming in over a couple turns. Now, the Westerness initial forces are the guards of Gondor. Then they can be set up anywhere inside of Minas Tirith or within 2 hexes of the city walls. And there's not a whole lot of them. They also have these little cauldrons, and they have oil, and you'll be using those to pour on top of Sauron's forces as they assault your walls. Now, on turn 5, you begin to roll to see if the riders of Rohan arrive. And basically, the Westerness player rolls a d6, and on a 5 or 6, the riders of Rohan appear on the northern edge of the map. On turn 10, Aragorn's forces automatically appear on the southern edge of the map. Now, rules as written say they have to come in on kind of these chains where they're basically coming in from off the map. I go ahead and say you can bring all the forces in at one time. I think it makes the game just a little more fun. Like in Sauron, the leaders don't have a whole lot of effect on combat. They're mostly there to rally units. And if a unit, and as I mentioned in the Sauron rules, they do this by rolling on the rally table. Now, if a unit that a leader is stacked with does take damage, you roll a d6. And on a 5 or 6, the leader takes the same damage. And if a unit's eliminated and the leader somehow survives, the leader is moved to the closest friendly unit. Also, Sauron's forces have a major advantage during the night turns. They're considered fanatical, and if they melee with an opponent, they automatically hit and don't have to roll on the casualty probability table, and they automatically roll on the combat results table. However, these automatic attacks don't apply to missile or siege engine attacks. Another special thing in this game is the Mumakil, which are the Middle-earth elephants, or Oliphants as they were called in the books. And this game pretty much uses your standard elephant running amok rules, as well as emphasizing the antipathy between the pachyderms and the equine units. So basically no cavalry unit can ever move adjacent to an elephant unit, enemy or friendly, and vice versa. Now if an elephant is attacked and is forced to retreat 1 hex due to a combat result, you roll a d6 to see which direction they run amok in, with 1 being straight upwards, and then you go clockwise around on each surrounding hex. And what will happen is the elephant will move in that direction at full movement allowance, and it will continue in that direction until it either enters the zone of control of another unit, or it moves off the map or into a wall, and both of these will eliminate the elephant unit. Now, if it does move into the zone of control of another unit, whether it be enemy or friendly, it attacks that unit. And once an elephant's made this second attack, it stops running amok and remains in a disordered state until it can be rallied. A couple of notes on Minas Tirith itself. The city's surrounded by 7 rings of walls, and each ring of walls delineates a different level of the city. Now, each level of the city is higher than the level outside of it. Thus, the first level of the city, which is delineated by the outer wall, and the second wall is the lowest level. The second level is higher than the outer level, but lower than the third, and so on, with the citadel being the highest level of the city. And leaders can't rally adjacent units that have a wall between them, unless the wall's breached or has a gate or is in a siege tower. Now, units can move to a higher level through control gates or by using siege towers and ladders. And gates are considered to be controlled by the side that last occupied the hex on the uphill side of the gate. At the beginning of the game, the westernist player controls all of the gates of Minas Tirith, and uncontrolled gates are simply treated as walls. Units can move to lower levels through towers and wall hexes, however they require an entire movement allowance and can't move into an enemy zone of control. Now towers are also higher than walls, siege towers, and ladders, and cannot be entered from hexes other than through their doorways. Also, obviously, cavalry and elephants can't cross a wall or a tower hex, whether it's breached or unbreached. They can only cross to a higher level through a gate. The outermost wall of Minas Tirith is special, and it can never be breached by any type of siege equipment. However, it can be scaled with towers and ladders. And the outer gate of the city can only be breached by Gron, which is this giant battering ram. Now, within the city, all Westernist units have a movement allowance of 5. Now, a house rule I have here is that units defending on top of or behind walls gain an armor protection bonus of 1 if they're being fired on by missiles. Those in towers, not siege towers, gain an armor protection of 2. And melee combat troops can't attack adjacent units from a lower position, though melee combat troops can attack adjacent units if the defending units are at a lower level. Finally, the spur of the mountain that Minas Tirith sits on contains tunnel hexes, and any units defending in these hexes do so with a rating of W. Now, the basic object of the game for the Sauron side is to get inside of Minas Tirith. And to do this, they have to besiege the city and use siege equipment to go through or over the walls. Siege equipment includes siege towers, catapults, cauldrons, and Gron. And none of these can be used in melee, thus they have no zone of control. To be utilized in the game, the siege equipment have to have combat units stacked with them. And they can also have leader units stacked with them. However, if a leader unit is stacked, they subtract 1 from their rally rating. Siege towers are used to facilitate movement over the outer walls. And if they begin the siege phase adjacent to a wall hex side, then any friendly unit can enter that hex through the siege tower and cross the hex side. And this costs an additional 1 movement point during the movement phase. They have no combat value in and of themselves, and if they're stacked with a combat unit, they have a movement allowance of 2. And units that are attacked while in the same hex as a siege tower subtract 1 from their armor protection rating. These units, however, can combat or make missile attacks out of the hex normally. Now, siege units can be left alone in the hex. However, if an enemy unit enters that hex, the siege weapon is automatically eliminated. While the siege towers are high enough to allow units to cross walls and gates, they're not high enough to cross towers, and they are susceptible to oil attacks from any higher level. Ladders are a little more expedient way of getting over the walls, and to use a ladder to scale a wall or a gate, a combat unit moves adjacent to that hex side, and the player simply places a ladder counter in that hex at the end of their movement phase. And units stacked with the ladder subtract 1 from their armor protection value when they're either meleeed or attacked by missile fire. On the following turn, the unit can simply use the ladder to cross the hex side at a cost of 3 movement points. Now, only the unit that placed the ladder can use that particular ladder to scale the wall. And once the unit leaves the hex that ladder is in, then the ladder is considered destroyed or removed from play. I house rule it that a unit can only use a particular ladder once in the game. This basically keeps the Sauron forces from leapfrogging their way all the way up Minas Tirith. Now, if a unit climbing a ladder is forced to retreat, the ladder's lost, and that unit cannot try to employ a ladder again. And if combat units in a siege tower or on a ladder suffer an adverse combat result from melee, not missile fire, the unit takes normal damage and the siege tower or ladder is automatically destroyed. Obviously, again, elephant units can't use ladders. Catapults can be used to throw fireballs, missiles, and the severed heads of their enemies against the walls. And like siege towers, the catapults have a movement allowance of 2, and they have to be stacked with a friendly combat unit to move. These catapults in Grond can only cross through breached or controlled gate hex sides. Now, catapults can fire only once per turn in either the siege phase or the missile fire portion of the combat phase, and they can't fire in both phases in the same turn. And these attacks are just slightly different. So basically, the catapult can fire at a wall hex side in the siege weapon phase with a maximum range of 4. And once a wall is targeted, the breach probability table is consulted, and the type of weapon and the range and hexes from weapon to target is crossed index. You roll 2d6. If a particular number is rolled, the wall is successfully breached. If a wall, a gate, or a tower is breached, you then place a breach counter on an adjacent hex with an arrow pointing to the specific breached hex side. Now, an infantry unit that's adjacent to a hex that's been breached in a siege phase and is stacked with a unit creating the breach can move through the newly breached hex side into the adjacent hex, though they can't enter an enemy-occupied hex or an enemy zone of control. Also in this game, line-of-sight rules don't apply to catapults. They can basically fire over any kind of terrain except for the mountain hexes. They can also be used during the missile combat phase to fire at enemy units, and in this case their range is 2 hexes and they have an attack strength of E. However, the defender's armor protection rating is increased by 1 if they're on a wall, and 2 if they're on a tower. Now, during the siege phase, the phasing player can also choose to hurl fireballs with their catapults, and these can be hurled up to 4 hexes away, and again, can be thrown over any obstacle. To do this, the phasing player simply indicates the hex they wish the fireball to land in, and they place a fire counter there. And if the target hex is 3 to 4 hexes from the catapult, that player rolls a 1d6, and on a 4 to 6, the fireball misses the target hex and lands in an adjacent random hex that's determined by rolling a d6 and consulting the scatter diagram. Now, if a fireball hits a siege weapon, a cauldron, a unit attempting to climb a ladder, or a unit carrying oil, then that weapon or unit is destroyed. Now, the exception to this is Grond, which is unaffected by fireballs. If there's a combat unit in that hex, that unit is destroyed. When a hex is on fire, it costs an additional 3 movement points to move through that hex. And fireballs landing in the city burn for the rest of the game. Those outside of the city are removed at the beginning of the next siege phase. Finally, the Sauron players can throw severed heads. This happens during the siege phase, and it functions to demoralize the opposition. Now, each catapult can fire 1 severed head counter per siege phase, with a limit of 12 counters during the game, and they're hurled basically in the same manner as fireballs. For each severed head thrown into Minas Tirith, the Westernest side adds 1 demoralization point to its garrison demoralization point total, and the Westernest combat units in the same hex as the severed head have their morale lowered 1 level, from W to X or X to Y, etc. And that happens for 1 turn. Now, heads remain in place unless they're removed by fire from a fireball. And basically, a fireball has to land directly on it. In regards to the battering ram Grond, this is this tremendous battering ram that was forged by the minions of Sauron. And it's the only siege equipment capable of breaching the main gate of Minas Tirith. Now, Grond has a movement allowance of 2, and he has to be carried by a troll or a Uruk-hai unit. For Grond to be used to breach an adjacent wall, tower, or gate, it has to be stacked with these. Also, to be activated, it has to be controlled under the spell of the Lord of the Nazgul. Again, breaches are resolved on the breach probability table using the Grond row and resolving the attack in a similar fashion as you did with catapults. Now, the Westernest units have some boiling oil. In the rules as written, there are dummy cauldron counters. I'm going to take them out of this game since I'm playing it solitaire, as they don't really serve any purpose. These cauldrons served as tanks where the oil was stored. So Westernest combat units take oil from the cauldrons, they move with them, and they pour them over the heads of the enemy. And the 3 cauldrons can be deployed anywhere inside Minas Tirith, but they can't be moved at any time afterwards. To pick up an oil counter, the unit simply moves into the hex, and then they can continue moving with it. And each combat unit can carry 1 oil. It doesn't count towards the stacking limit, though it does have its movement allowance, and its armor protection rating reduced by 1. Further, at any time during their movement phase, the counter carrying the oil can dump it on an enemy unit or counter that's in a lower position than they are, and that enemy unit's automatically eliminated. Also, cauldrons can be destroyed by fireballs, or by the presence of an enemy combat unit in the same hex. Now, I'm not sure it's in the rules, but I say that Grond is immune to the effects of oil, although the units stacked with him are not. Like Sauron, there's a couple of leaders that have magical spells, and one is the Lord of the Nazgul, who has Fear Attribute, Freeze Leader Attribute, and Operate Grond. Basically, to operate Grond, he has to cast a spell. However, that spell is good for the remainder of the game, so cast it once and they're good. And the chief spell that Gandalf has to cast is Reveal Aragorn to Sauron. This costs 4 magic points to cast, and it lasts for 3 turns. And this is cast when Aragorn reaches the battlefield. Basically, unfurls a banner indicating that he is now the king of Gondor. Now, the banner counter has the same movement as a leader and can move by itself as long as it ends its movement phase stacked with a Westerness leader. It has no zone of control, nor does it have any innate combat strength. However, if the leader stacked with it is eliminated, the banner is eliminated. When it's unfurled, no Sauron leader can attempt to rally a Sauron combat unit within 6 hexes, and the Lord of the Nazgul can no longer cast spells. Also, after it's unfurled, any Westerness units within 6 hexes are automatically rallied. After these 3 turns, any 2 units within 6 hexes, the banner are automatically rallied. Honestly, you'll probably not use it in the game. Now, each players have 3 different demoralization value and points. Now, the Westerness unit has to keep track of 2 different demoralization levels. The first is for the garrison in minus Tirith, and the second is for the reinforcements. And the demoralization level of the garrison and reinforcements don't have any effect on each other. For the minus Tirith garrison, the demoralization level is 36 demoralization points. So basically, they're demoralized after reaching that. And this level is adjusted for the following situations. It's adjusted by plus 10 for every level of the city under control of the Sauron side. And control of a level means that they control both the gate and have units in that level. It's adjusted by plus 5 if the main gate is breached by Grond. It's adjusted downwards by 10 for the arrival of the Riders of Rohan, and it's adjusted down by 10 for the arrival of Aragorn and his units. Now, the demoralization level for all the Westerness reinforcements is 76, and this is simply counted by taking into effect the loss of leaders and combat units. You use the rally points of the leader to determine how much demoralization occurs if they're destroyed. Gandalf and Imrahil are always considered part of the garrison for purposes of demoralization. Sauron's forces have a demoralization level of 93. This is adjusted by minus 20 if the minus Tirith garrison becomes demoralized, minus 5 per city level that the Sauron side gains control, and plus 5 for every city level that the Sauron side has gained and then lost. To win, the Sauron side has to do 3 things. First, they have to demoralize the minus Tirith garrison. Second, they have to remain undemoralized themselves. And third, they have to control the road from minus Tirith to Gondor. And to control the road, Sauron units must at least occupy or pass through hexes 1918 and 2124. Also, the army of Sauron wins by reaching hex 1903 at any point. Units set up here with the forces of minus Tirith, right here, the garrison. And you'll notice that there's oil underneath in the 2 towers by the gate, and I'll distribute that probably in the first turn, and then the forces of Sauron are down here, and they'll get to move first. Now, technically, I'd start with the magic leader movement. I don't think either side needs to really move a lot yet. I don't know, Gandalf, he could cast, but I think he's going to need those later, so we're going to wait. Both sides, I think, are going to wait until the reinforcements start coming. And this is, of course, this first turn is a day turn. So let's just go ahead and get things started here. And the Witch King's going to move 1, 2, 3, 4. Now he can move 2, but with that catapult, he could move on further. I'm going to say, well, no, I'm not. I'm not going to let him go any further because the oil these guys can pour down. Then we'll move 1, 2. Potato Head will go 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Who's under that? Oh, there's a siege tower there. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think another catapult. 1, 2. Actually, I think I'm going to pull back here. Reason being is I need to move Grond into place as quickly as possible. Actually, no, he'll move there. He'll stay there. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. And then these guys are going to try to move out here. I think they're going to try to flank. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hopefully that's making sense. Like I said, I've had some complaints that some of this isn't making a lot of sense when I do that and kind of pull back a little bit on moves, but I apologize for that in advance. 1. Oh, hold on a second. 1, 2, 3. No, he can't really go any further. Okay. This guy, however, can go 1, 2, 3. Let's try that again. 1, 2, 3, and he can still go one more. And that guy will move in here. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Nothing further there. I should have moved a guy. Oh, that guy can't move that far. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. He can move there. Okay. 4, 2, 3, 4. We'll just move him up here. Actually, he could go 1, 2, 3, 4. He can move into there. Okay. They've moved. Then Sauron can combat. Sauron, I call him. Sauron. It's S-A-U-R. I guess it's kind of a lizardy name. And we can combat with, we go to our CRT and look at our casualty. And we're going to try to take those 2 guys out here. So these are E fighting a 3. So E3, they need a 3 to 6. They got a 10. And then these 2 will do the same thing. 3 to 6. There's a 7. And a 9, so these 3 E units aren't able to do anything. Okay, we go next in the sequence to the second magic leader. That would be Gandalf, and like I say, he's not going to cast anything. And the Western has movement phase. We're going to have to try to do something here. And then these guys are all going to grab some oil. So this guy goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He can make it. And then this guy can make it. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So basically these guys are going to switch places. I'm just going to leave them like they are. And then this guy will go. And then these oils will go. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we'll move him up here to that tower. This guy will go here. Let's see, he can go, he started here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He can move there. And then this guy can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There. And we still have an oil here. Now, I don't know whether... Can these guys fire? The other question I don't think is really answered is, can they fire? They have to move with siege weapons. To move siege weapons, you have to have a unit with them, but I don't know whether they can fire on their own or not. Let me know down below. I'll say they can, just to keep things more interesting here. Okay. Oh, and this guy, I'm going to leave him here. We'll just leave the oil down there. Okay. Now we can try to attack with those 2 cavalry units, and let's see, they are a B, and they're going against a 1, so a 4 to 9, and this is B against a 3. Let's see, 4 to 9. First roll 5, so that's hits a Z, and we roll on a D6, and we get a 4. So yeah, that automatically eliminates this guy. And then this guy's going against a B3. Gets a 9. A B3, 9, so it doesn't make it. Okay, and that is the end of go through the sequence here. That's the end of the Westerness combat. We do a rally. There's nobody that needs to rally, so we're good. And then I'm going to hold off on figuring these points for these guys just because it's obviously not going to be demoralization time. So we'll wait a turn or two. Anyway, that's the end of turn 1. Turn 2, night begins. So basically on the CRT, you don't need to use, Sauron player doesn't need to use the casualty probability table. I'm still going to say they need it to fire arrows. I don't think they would be, I think it should have just applied to melee combat. So, okay. Also, we bring in our reinforcements, and there's a lot of them. So we'll just stack them up here, and I don't chain them on. I don't know, that's kind of a mess. But they do have to come off on that road. Okay. Let's just say we do have to chain. Let's go ahead and make them chain on. Now, it doesn't say what order they have to come in, so obviously we want Grond to come in first. Let's just do that. So we're going to start with Grond's movement. Actually, let's start with these guys up front's movement. And what we're going to do... Wait, hold on. We can start with our sequence is... And I marked that through. That is... Ignore that mark through. So, Forces of Sauron siege phase. And they can launch this at 2. So we'll move that. I think we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to try to do we're going to try to hit him with that catapult. And that guy, no other catapults can go. Okay, so this catapult is going to do during, oh no, they have to do that during the combat phase. I forgot. They can only fire against walls. They could fire against, well, they can't breach. I don't think you can breach this outer wall. You can only get it with ladders, so they can't do anything. Okay, let's do the Forces of Sauron movement. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, no. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. We're gonna do that. These real wimpy ones, these E1Zs, we should have got those guys up here first. We're gonna go 1, 2, 3, and then he'll move into place here. He'll move into place here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Gothmog will move forward. That's fine. And yeah, I should have moved the E1Zs up, and they could have tried to take out those oils. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. 1, 2. Wait. 1, 2. Oh, because he can only go 2, so he'll go 1, 2. That's fine. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll spread out. Okay. Now let's bring on our guys. Oh, first of all, let's put some ladders on so they can try to climb the walls. Okay, those 3 can try. And then we're going to bring on Grond. And he can go for it. 1, 2, 3, 4, but he has to have a troll with him. So there's Grond and his troll friends. Okay, and then... See, when you chain these on, I don't know. That's a mess. I guess you can count each one that comes on as one less thing. So basically, you can only get 4 units on at a time. See, this would have been better if they would have just put a game turn 2, game turn 3, game turn 4, and let's just do it that way. That would make a lot more sense. But I don't. Let's ignore that. It's just too complicated for my little brain. 1, 2, 3. Like Richard Berg used to say when people couldn't understand his rules, well, it's not my fault. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And 6. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then my elephants can't go adjacent, so we'll just move them here and here and here. We'll put Herod there. Okay, one. Put another troll unit here with the tower. And 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm just gonna, hopefully a disruption won't cause too much trouble. Kind of making a big mushroom here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we'll go here and here and here. Okay. Like I said, I think that does give the Sauron forces a little bit more oomph, which they really don't need, but I don't, it's chaining those on is always kind of a weird, that's a mechanism I've always kind of wondered about. Okay, these guys are climbing the walls. These guys are attacking. This guy, he can only attack for 2, so nothing's in. He could fire here. Let's go ahead. We're going to attack first. Oh, we got to attack first with missile weapons. I forgot. Yeah. So you got to go missile and then leaders and then finally melee. So I've got to attack with this guy. So he is going to attack here, E3, and rolls a 5. E3, 5. So, oh, but I forgot. They automatically hit. So we just got to roll for casualties because it's night and they're fanatical. Rolls a 4, and it's a 4 against a W, which is with a 1. Now, can't go here, can't go here, can't go here. So he's eliminated. Okay, over here, we do the same thing, and we have an E. Basically, at anything we get, anything we roll is going to either be a retreat, or an elimination. So, and he can't retreat. There's zones of control. So no matter what I roll, he's gone. Okay. Now, and we will move into those. We will move in now. Okay. I don't think anybody else can really move. Okay, we've got oils. Now, again, the dummy oils would have made it a little better, but since I'm playing by myself here, let's see. Sequence, Forces of Sauron combat, second. Okay. Gandalf really can't do much. Western S movement. I am going to move him down the wall here. We'll move him down the wall here. This guy will move here. And, oh yeah, he has to go there, Imrahil. And then that guy here, and then this guy's going to go in a tower here. And that's it. Now we dump oil. It's part of movement, so dumping oil. like I say, we should have sent these little E1X's up to do this, but I guess you could save the oil, but I'm not sure. You're going to be overwhelmed pretty quickly. And it keeps them out. As long as we can keep them out for these 6 turns, then hopefully the Rohan guys can get in there and we can help them out. So I think at this time, it's probably expedient to dump the oil. I guess the oil doesn't stay around, so we can delete those. And I'll leave the ladders over here. I'll put them back. And this guy's eliminated. And that is it now. Then we go into the combat phase, and this guy can fire. And I'm going to fire down at the Witch King unit, who's an E1Z. So that could eliminate the Witch King. Let's see what happens. Not a good place for the Witch King to be. He needs to be with like a troll unit, like a B3Z or something, but he's there, so big mistake on the part of the Sauron player. Okay, so we have an E against a 1. And that is 11, so it doesn't do any damage. We do the same thing with this guy and gets a 5. And so an E1 is a 5, and we roll on the Z table, and we get a 4, so it eliminates him. And then we roll to see if it's a 5 or 6. The Witch King is eliminated. And it's a 2, so it's not. Oh, and that also destroys the destroys this guy. Those guys don't count for anything for demoralization points. So the Witch King has to go to the nearest unit. He could either go to this guy, or this guy. Definitely E2 is probably a better guy to go with. So lesson learned. Don't stack him with an E1Z. I think those are like light orc infantry. Doesn't make much sense. Foolish on my part. Okay. Nobody had to rally because everybody just was pretty much eliminated. So we're going to go to the next turn and keep these guys. Yeah. Okay. Units of Sauron are going to go again. Here and here. I need those E1Zs to move. Okay, I think what I'm going to do is go 1, 2, 3, 4. He'll take the oil. This guy will go 1, 2, 3. And he can move 1 more, so he'll move with that guy. Move him here and here. We want to take the gate. We'll move him here. Wait. Nope, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 here. 1, 2, 3, 4 here. This E1Z will go here. I got to bring Grand in. 1, 2, 3. So Grand is now at the gate. That's 2 movement points because of the road movement. And we'll go to E1Z here. I need to get in as quick as I can. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And that. Okay, and then this guy will go 1, 2. There's our 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Gothmog. Oh, he can't move anything. So we'll move this guy 1, 2, 3, and then 4 with Gothmog. Okay. 1, 2. 1, 2. Wait, let's go use the road. 1, 2, 3. Wait, let's go. Actually, let's see here. These guys can hop over the wall, but they're going to lose their ladder. Which is okay, because we can use that to demoralize and then move in. I I really want my tough units to get in there too through the gate. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to move this guy over here. This guy can move 1, 2, 2.5, 3. Well, actually, there. And then this guy can move 1, 2, 3. There's 3.5. No, he can't go any further. I was trying to get these bowmen in place. 1, 2, 3, 4. Excuse me. And then we're just going to move these guys up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, good retreat will disrupt a lot of guys here, so. Because we've got them all bunched up. Two, three, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's those guys. Now we can move our cavalry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to stand right there and kind of protect my flank. 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now my elephants can come up, and we're just going to go there, there, and there. We don't want to get them close to the horses. And I think that's going to be it. I think I've got everybody moved. So we've got to get ladders going. So we got a ladder here, ladder here, ladder here, ladder here, ladder here. And then can't really get I don't know whether the gate should have a ladder or not. I'm going to say not. I just don't think you could really, I think they should be really well fortified there. And I need some more game markers. We need more ladders. Okay. And here and here. Okay, those are my ladders. Those guys are all climbing the walls, so they can't fight. Next turn they can. And then we try to fire on these guys. So we've got an E3. And like I say, I don't know. It just seems like strange that you use this casualty results table. These guys aren't exactly, I don't think that for missile combat it really should apply. So we're going to say an E3. Now E3, and we're going to, since he's on top of a wall though, we're going to say E4. So 5 to 6, 4. Okay, we'll do the same thing here. 8, and then here, a 7, close but no cookie. Okay, and then here, firing on Gandalf. 10, no. Okay. Here, firing on Gandalf. 4, no. Okay, and that is it for the missile. Now, Sauron's catapult can go. I'm going to say fireball. And I think the fireballs actually automatically hit. All you got to do is say, hey, I hit with the fireball. No, we're going to do it here on the oil. If it's 4, then I roll to see if he hits. 1, 2, 3. So he should automatically hit. So that eliminates this guy and this oil. All you're supposed to do is roll, because I don't think, let's see, breach probabilities. No, I don't think. So yeah, if we use the fireball, that would do the trick. Okay, anybody else? Okay, Grond can try to knock a hole. And Grond needs a 5 through 9. And Grond gets a 7. So Grond makes it through. And the gate is destroyed. And I'm going to say that this then allows, it doesn't really, it's kind of hard to say. I think we're going to allow B to attack D. So let's go back. Oh, B automatically attacks. So basically, you just roll a die 6 and get a 5. So B gets a 5 against a X. Retreats 1. So Gandalf and him, he's disrupted, and Gandalf there. And this guy gets to move in. There's nothing really, there's no more oils there. Okay. So he's in place. Okay, is everybody gone? Everybody's gone here. Now we let the Gondor, defense of Gondor, and they're going to use an oil here. This was an oil I already used. And we'll say that gets rid of this guy. And any more oils? Yeah, this is an oil. I'll use it on this guy. So I did lose 1 oil. Let's see, any more oil? Okay, this is oil. And we eliminate this guy. Ah. I got a cat attacking me. So then this guy's an oil. And this is during the movement phase. So, and so he can actually move it, and then this guy could come down and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He can't really. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so he goes there and dumps an oil. And this guy's eliminated. And that is it for oil. Okay, now we can fire. It's kind of weird to think this guy could fire over that. I don't know. We'll say he can fire down here at E1Z. Oh, catapult here. Let's start with catapult. Let's just work our way across. Catapult here fires at this guy. And these guys have an armor of 1 less. So he gets a 10 against a armor of 2. So that's a 1. So 10 against 1 with an E. He needs a 4 to 7. So nothing. Okay. This guy's going to, I guess, fire right down on this B3. He fires a B3. So he needs a 2 to 7. And gets a 3. So that's enough. Okay. So as Z morale. Oh, that eliminates him. Okay, then this guy's going to fire here at this X unit. Let's try that X unit. What do we got here? That guy should have fired here and then well, no, that guy's disrupted, so he can't do anything. Okay, so E to 1. And we get 8. E1, 8, nothing. Okay, and then a E 3. Oh, he can only fire 2, so he's going to have to fire at this E1 here. 6, 7, 8, so nothing. Okay. And then Gandalf is going to try to rally his units. Let's go with our rally. And we roll 2D and get a 6. And Gandalf has an 8, so yeah, he easily. The only thing that Gandalf could not rally would be on 11 or 12. So this guy's undisrupted. And that marks the end of the turn. Okay, now Sauron's units can try to move in. And we're going to go. I forget which ones were the Uruk-hai. Because the Uruk-hai can move Grond. Uruk-hai are the E3Ys. Okay, so I need an E3Y to get on Grond. I don't think a B3Y will do it. E3Y comes up, picks up Grond. That's going to be 1, 2, and moves in. We're going to try to move Grond in. Okay, arrow. Here. 2. Actually, we're going to hold off there. I'm not going to use my ladder here. because I can go across the tower. 1, 2. Oops, that guy's not going to be able to go there. Tower can fight. This guy's over the wall. Ah, get off there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to put a little mark attack to indicate he's used his ladder. Same thing here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to go this way. Let's see. This guy's firing. This guy's firing. This guy's firing. This guy can attack from the top of the wall. Move this guy in. This guy in. 1. We'll move him in. Let's see. That guy he can actually do that there. And he could breach. He can't breach now because we've used up our breaching, but he can fire. Oh, this guy. I forgot about him. Okay. He's going to use his fireball. We're going to move this guy here. 2. I'm playing a dangerous game here. 3, 4. Okay. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And hopefully we're anticipating that the Riders of Rohan will show. And we're gonna 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Hopefully I can use these elephants to block if I need to. Okie doke. Starting with the fire phase, and who's going to be firing? So we're going to have these guys firing. Let's start this. These guys can fire a fireball and destroy this guy. So he's out of the picture. We need to put a fire marker there. So both towers are on fire. Which king? There's a tower there. So we can move that tower. This tower's moved up, and they can cross next turn. And then actually I can use that to cross next turn. So this guy's going to fire. So let's start here with, we're going to fire here, 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 here. We've got a lot of guys firing. And this guy, oh, nobody's within 2. Okay. So we'll start here, and these guys are on walls, so I give them a benefit of the doubt. Did I move that? Yeah, I did. Okay. 3. So it's going to be a 5 or 6. They're going to need a 5 or 6 to hit these 3s. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 attacks at 5 or 6. So we'll just say 1, 2, we'll just say 2 on each one. And again, we need a 5 or 6, okay? 1, 2, there's our 5. Okay, so he's going to take the first one. And we roll for an X, we roll a 5. So R1, so he's sent back 1, and he's disrupted. Okay, now we've got 2 more attacks. There's a 6, okay, so this one hits this guy. We roll a 1. 1X is a half eliminated. And he goes back 2. And we flip him, okay? Now I've got 3 that can hit this guy. 1, It's an 8, an 8, and a 7. So none of those hit. Okay, now we've got the guy climbing the walls, and he's going to do an E3. He's on a ladder, though. So an X, a 3 is going to be, we're going to say a 5 or 6 again. 7, he does hit, and we roll for damage, and we get a 2 for an X2, half eliminated R2. Okay. Problem is, I don't think he can go anywhere. He can't go back any further. So let's see, this guy's flipped. Imrahil, and we roll a 1 die and get a 1. So he is moved to this guy. Actually, I don't think I needed to roll a 4 to 6 to see if he takes the same damage, I think. So he's flipped. I don't know if I got that right or not. That's okay. It ain't going to make a big difference. And this guy can then move into that space, which he'll do. Ladders are done. Okay, and we're going to mark attacked here to show he's used his ladder up. These guys won't use ladders. Okay, then E3. E3. So 3 to 6. He gets a 3. So this Gondor unit rolls an X. Rolls a 6X. 6X is a retreat 1. So moves back here. And we mark him as disrupted. Okay, this guy can't do anything. Okay, and that ends the turn of Sauron. So they've gotten into the first ring, but they haven't eliminated all these guys. So, they've reached the gate too. I'm going to take a quick break here and figure some demoralization points up. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm glad I stopped to check the demoralization points, because the Western S player, particularly the forces of Gondor, have been demoralized. We made it through the gate. You only had to actually destroy these 3 units, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but I guess that was enough. So basically you needed 36 points, and they reached it. Yeah, so there's 36. That's counting breaching the main gate. The Sauron forces had 43 points of demoralization. They're still 50 excuse me, from being demoralized. And we are only on turn 4, so it's still a night turn. I'm not sure there's a whole lot of reason to go through any of this. Honestly, this game has been just not a fun game to play. I'm kind of done with these old Lord of the Rings. I might try to do War of the Rings. I don't know yet. Like I said, I'm kind of burned out with this. When I've played this in the past, what's pretty much happened, I played without the demoralization caused by the combat units, and it makes it a little bit easier for the forces, but still the Gondor forces get pretty much wiped out once the gate's been breached. They don't really have any place they can go. I suppose they could use ladders and climb the wall. I don't think there's anything that says they can't. And basically the next turn I would just move this guy down. I don't even have to worry about this anymore. And once I've got this hex and this hex, then I've got the road controlled to minus Morgul. I've got the Gondor units demoralized, and I am not demoralized. This is assuming I'm playing as the Sauron player. If you are able to make it to the turn when the Riders of Rohan come in, they can come in. However, the elephant units pretty much block them, and they basically have to fire arrows at the elephant units. And usually they can fire arrows at the elephant units. However, I can generally bring my cavalry into play and pretty much wipe them out. And then that leaves the Aragorn and his bunch to come in from the south. But by that time, I've pretty much cleared the battlefield. In fact, by turn 11, a lot of times I have the entire battlefield clear, which would indicate that, and all I'm doing is moving up through the city at this point. So I don't know. This has not been my favorite game. I think I'm done with this one. hopefully we'll be on some better games coming up. I'm planning on doing some science fiction games next month. Probably be doing some P Ridge coming up in a few months in March. Have that one going. Got a few that I've recorded earlier this year that I'll probably pull into just to give me a little break. Like I say, this game kind of burned me out. So if you've played this and you've come up with a lot different, and you've probably, I'm assuming a lot of people know the rules better than I do out here. Let me know how you played it and how you were able to get the forces of Gondor to even have a chance in this. Again, it's a lot like the Sauron game where Sauron didn't stand much of a chance. I don't know why this game was designed the way it was. It certainly as a fantasy game, you could have balanced this a lot better and still even had it be fairly true to the book. But the way it is now, it's just a hot mess. Anyway, I really appreciate you sticking through on this, and we will talk to you later. Bye.